is up? May 29th, 2025 on a Thursday night. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Cozy Corner. I am your host, Kieran Smith. Welcome to the daily live stream. We are on the corner. What is up, everybody? All right, guys. So I have a couple clips up here for us to react to today. Kind of really just watch Newsathon, usually on Thursday, sometimes Wednesday, but yesterday I did a little bit more reacting with you guys. Today I'm just pulling up a couple clips that I want us to look at, and then probably about 2 or 3 of them we'll go over tomorrow. In addition to like 2 new clips. Yeah, so yeah, that's Tom Home and Ice on Sanctuary Cities. Hold on a second. Babe, you good? You good? It's my wife yelling at the dog. Alright, so yeah, we're gonna react to like 2 or 3 tonight. We'll look at about 4 or 5 actually and save 2 or 3 for tomorrow, in addition to something new. But news today, so I definitely wanted to bring it up. Alright guys, so as a big advocate for mental health and wellness, I hope that you are regulated and or grounding, because news can be triggering. So if you are not, come back and watch this later. But if you are, welcome to the live stream. First up on the menu, ladies and gentlemen, we have Face the Nation. Shout out to Face the Nation. Board Czar Tom Homan discusses Trump administration's immigration priorities. So Tom Homan actually brought up the fact that he wants to see more deportations happen. They're moving as fast as they can, but you know, he wants to see more progress. So we know Tom Homan's motivated. He sounded like that during the campaign rallies. He told us what he was going to come in and do. So he wants to see more deportations. This is something I was actually talking to my wife about earlier today, when I was telling her about the Trump administration and her being, just asking questions about like the president that's I guess you could say deported the most immigrants. And I believe right now, as it stands, it's still Obama. So she was actually pretty shocked about that. And I said, yeah, it was actually a Democrat, the old figure. So, yeah, right now we're going to take a look at that with Tom Homan talking about the immigration priorities. Still super motivated to get it done. Very encouraged by President Trump's cabinet. Has a lot on the agenda. Wants to go into some sanctuary cities that have still been keeping him out. So Tom Homan is still super motivated about his immigration agenda. We'll look at that. Then we'll jump over to Kempire. Shout out to Kempire. He's been covering Diddy's trial. I think Kempire has done an excellent job commentating on it. We've been with Kempire probably since, I don't know, day 8 now, or maybe, I think day 8. And a couple of days before that, we watched Jerica Duncan, Crime Network with Jesse Weber. So we've watched a couple of different ones. Kempire I usually tend to stick to because he's very detailed. He reads a lot. He doesn't just go off of only the internet. So he covers it well. Diddy's ex-assistant speaks out in court. Disturbing details revealed. So this is a trial day 12 recap. We'll probably watch about only 15 minutes of this, and then you guys will head over to Kempire's channel and give him his due views for his hard work. Then we'll switch gears and we'll jump over to Fox News clips with Sean Hannity. Left reaction to Elon Musk reveals its hypocrisy, Ted Cruz says. So he's probably referring to how the left is reacting to Elon Musk's comment about President Donald Trump's big, beautiful bill. Because Elon Musk had some of his own personal critique, which everyone is entitled to, about the big, beautiful bill. You know, the leftist mainstream media networks are going to take that and run with it. We know that. So now they're like, oh, Elon Musk doesn't agree with Donald Trump's bill. There's kind of fighting amongst Donald Trump and Elon Musk. I don't think that that's taking place at all. I listened to Elon's comments. He didn't say anything horrible. One thing I thought he said was funny was he said a bill, I don't know if a bill could be big and beautiful. So, Elon's alluding to it's either big or beautiful, and in his opinion right now, this one's just big, So, I mean, it's his opinion, just because the Republicans work together to get the bill passed, it doesn't necessarily mean everyone's gonna like it, but you suffer for the greater good. So we'll take a look at that. Then we're gonna stay with Fox News clips. Good old party senator makes major announcement about investigation into Biden's cognitive decline. Oh boy. So I don't know. It's looking like there might. I know that a lot of people have been alluding to that there might be some type of real live investigation taking place about the cover up of former President Joe Biden. If anyone was aware of this and purposely kept it from the American people, I believe that, of course, that was happening because we saw them keep Joe Biden out of interviews, off of TV. We saw these things. Like, we saw him slip and fall on stage. We saw him falling up the steps going onto Air Force One. So I think there will be some sort of formal investigation launched, but we don't have 100% on that yet, but we will take a look at what Fox News has to say about that. And then to end the live stream, I always end the live stream with a Christian clip or some type of Christian content. Today we're ending with Mike with the Mic. Shout out to Mike with the Mic. I watched Mike with the Mic for some time now. I really put Mike in the evangelistic category. He definitely goes around. He's not afraid to talk to people. He goes around and interacts with people about Jesus, usually just talking about the gospel. He's a man out in Australia, so today we're actually going to watch him. He put up a video 21 hours ago titled, "You Have No Freedom to Walk with a Jesus Sign, Police Again." So you have some security guards in Australia that come up to him because he's walking around with a sign that says Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. I believe it says the whole entire verse, but I'm not sure about that. I believe this is John 14:6. I can verify this for you guys. Yep, John 14:6. So he's walking around with a sign that has basically John 14:6 on it. These security guards come up to him and, they're basically telling him that, he's disturbing the peace to a certain extent by walking around with the sign. And, he starts talking about the law. They start talking about things. Eventually, he cooperates and he walks away and he turns the camera off. But you just really see the interaction and him kind of staying up to them about, listen, if I'm not breaking any laws, what's wrong with me walking around with this sign? I love it because then he says, if I were to go home and put this on a t-shirt and come out here and wear it, would I have to take the t-shirt off? Now, of course, he's being facetious, but I still love his boldness and his diligence for Christ. So we'll end the live stream with that. All right, guys, first clip up on the menu. Shout out to Face the Nation. Border Czar Tom Homan discusses Trump administration immigration priorities. Let's take a listen.
Hello everyone, I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to The Takeout. There's been a fair amount of news about the future of Trump tariffs and potential progress on a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. I promise we will get to that much more a bit later. But I want to start tonight with a conversation about immigration. I want to bring in White House Border Czar Tom Homan, who joins us from what we call in the trade a studio van somewhere near Fredericksburg, Virginia. There might be a slight audio delay between my question and Tom's answer, but we'll work through that, I promise you. Tom, thanks for joining us. Can you confirm reports that last week, top White House advisor Stephen Miller ordered a new target of 3,000 immigration arrests today, and in that meeting expressed frustration with the current pace of enforcement actions?
Well, yeah, I've confirmed Steve, Secretary Norman, and myself. I've been saying since the first month of this operation that the numbers are good. The arrest numbers on the interior enforcement operation are good. They've been a lot better than the Biden administration, but it's not good enough. I mean, ICE was, during the most horrific 4 years of historic illegal immigration, ICE had the lowest numbers of arrests and removals in the history of the agency. At the same time, you had unprecedented illegal entry on the border. So I need more numbers. I've been saying the numbers are good, better than Biden, but not good enough. Like, for instance, there are over 600,000 illegal aliens with criminal records walking the streets of this nation. So arresting, several hundred a day isn't enough. So yeah, we got to vastly increase it. I've been behind for months. Steve Miller agrees, and Secretary Number agrees. We're all on the same page. We need more.
Tom, at that pace of 3,000 arrests a day, would that triple the current rate? And is that attainable?
Well, certainly attainable. We got plenty of, as the Tucker-rich environment, I can just say we got over 600 criminal illegal aliens walking the streets, and it's.
Do you have the resources to do it? I guess is what I'm getting at, Tom. Do you have the resources to do it?
Yeah, we've added, we certainly have the resources. Not just ICE out there now. We got DEA, FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals. It's all the government effort that President Trump came up with. And we just added a lot more teams. We're going to have up to 1,000 teams out there on the streets, which is a lot more teams than we had in the past. We added additional targeting to get more information on where these people can be found. So we've increased targeting, we've increased teams, we've increased assets. So yes, it's certainly attainable.
You mentioned the 600,000 number. I will remember, Tom, during the campaign, President Trump saying, we know where they are, local police know where they are, they're easy to find. Have they been harder to find than you imagined?
Well, sanctuary cities, like sanctuary cities, they're a roadblock, they're a speed bump, right? Because rather than arresting a bad guy in a county jail where it's safe for the alien, safe for the officer, and safer for the community, sanctuary cities release them into the community. Now we gotta go find somebody that don't want to be found. Of course, it's a lot harder, but like I said in the past, in sanctuary cities, we'll just have to flood the zone. If we can't send one officer to jail, arrest one guy, we gotta send a whole team to arrest that one guy and try to find him. We're going to send a whole boatload of agents. We're going to send a lot of agents to that city, and we're going to swamp the neighborhoods. We're going to increase worksite enforcement operations. If we can't arrest a bad guy in the jail, then we're arresting him in the community. We're arresting him in the worksite.
You mentioned sanctuary cities. There's a report here this week that in her budget submission, quietly, the mayor of District of Columbia, Muriel Bowser, has pulled or wants to pull back sanctuary city status for the District of Columbia. Have you been in conversations with the mayor? Do you know that that's true? How would that change things here in the nation's capital?
I have not spoken to that mayor. I've been speaking to mayors, of course, but I have not spoken to her specifically. But look, it'd be huge. I think every mayor, every elected mayor, number one responsibility is protection of their communities and removing public safety threats from their communities. And that's what President Trump's been concentrated on. Public safety threats and national security threats. Everybody ought to be on the same side. Everybody has a responsibility to protect their community. So help us do this. We're not asking the immigration officers. We're asking for their cops. We'll work with our cops to remove public safety threats that are in the country illegally.
It was confirmed late this afternoon, Tom, that there's going to be another shakeup at ICE. Enforcement and removal operations person Ken Gianalo is going to retire soon, and Robert Hammer, current head of Homeland Security Investigations, will be reassigned. What was the catalyst for these changes?
Well, look, ICE reports to the secretary. That'd be a question for DHS. They make those personal decisions. I don't. I'm at the White House. I work with Steve Miller, and brilliant man. And we're working on, overall strategic visions and operational guidance on what to do out there in the field and what to do on the border to bring success. But personnel decision like that rests with the secretary, so that'd be a question for her.
Understood. With the pace of arrests and detentions, some citizen children and some residents with green cards have been swept up. Do you have any regrets about that? And is it possible that demands for a faster or more accelerated pace of arrests could lead to more mistakes?
Well, like I said, we prioritize public safety threats, national security threats, but like I just said, when sanctuary cities force us into the neighborhood to find that bad guy, many times that person is with others that are illegally in the country, but may not be a criminal target. Well, they're going to go too. We're not going to tell ICE officers to ignore the oath they took. Do not enforce the law you swore to enforce. The last administration told ICE officers, you can't arrest somebody for simply being here illegally. They got to be convicted of a serious offense in addition to being here illegally. That's rewriting statute. That's rewriting federal law. We're letting ICE officers do their job. So if sanctuary cities want to enforce in the neighborhoods, you're going to see more collateral arrests. They're going to get exactly what they don't want. More agents in the community and more collateral arrests. Let us in the jail. Let us have the bad guy in the safety and security of the jail. It's better for everybody. But as far as U.S. citizen children, look, having a U.S. citizen child doesn't make you immune from our laws. If you cross the border illegally, which is a crime, whether you show up in court or don't show up in court, and you fail to leave as ordered by the court, and you choose to hide out and have a U.S. citizen child, that doesn't make you immune from the law. You put yourself in that position. You put your family in that position. So when that person is already deported, it's parenting 101. You make a decision. You can take the child with you, or you can leave the child with another spouse or relative, whoever you choose. That's a parenting decision. But to remove a U.S. citizen child. We don't deport U.S. citizens, that's illegal. But the parent makes that decision. And let me give you, for instance, if we didn't allow the parent to take that child with them, then the story today would be ISIS separating families. Then that'd be another story. We're making this a parental decision, not a government decision.
Tom, you mentioned courthouses. I want to ask you, why is it necessary or a good idea operationally for ICE to conduct enforcement actions at courthouses where people are arriving for hearings? And is it your experience, and I know you have a tremendous amount of experience in this field, that hardened criminal aliens go to courthouses for hearings like these?
No, we arrest a lot. We arrest criminals at courthouses. We arrest fugitives, those who've had due process at great taxpayer expense and choose to become a fugitive and go hide out. If we know, that's why we lifted the whole central location policy. ICE was the only law enforcement agency that had a policy: you can't arrest somebody in a courthouse, you can't arrest somebody at a medical center, you can't arrest somebody at a church. And look, there's no sanctuary for a public safety threat or national security threat. So when we looked at that policy, it's like, we're not going to raid schools. We're not going to go to raid a school, but we have an MS-13 member that's a senior in this high school. We know he's there. Now we've been looking for him. We'll work with local authorities to arrest that MS-13 member. Law enforcement does that every day, every other law enforcement agency. So we're no different, but there's no sanctuary for public safety threats and national security threats. But courthouses, look, I've been in courthouses many days, many times, where I watched a father getting arrested in a courtroom for not paying child support. So why can't ICE go in a courthouse and arrest a significant public safety threat? It's the right thing to do. Take them off the streets and put in. And look, if the local prosecutor, the state or federal prosecutor, wants to continue with the prosecution, they simply got to agree with us, do it right, take them back in custody, let us know when you're done with them. But there's no sanctuary for illegal aliens or a public safety threat in this country.
Before I let you go, Tom, I hope this is the first of many conversations that you and I will have. As a general principle, is someone who is in this country illegally, but not a criminal, has not committed any criminal violation in this country, just here working and living illegally, is that person, according to your definition, by himself or herself, a public security threat or a national security threat?
No, they're not, but let me add to this. Our priority is public safety threat or national security threat. Well, if you're in the country legally, you're not off the table. I mean, I may prioritize my family life over my business life. I don't forget about my business life. The prioritization is about going after who first. But if you're in the country legally, that's not okay. It's a violation of law to enter the country legally. That's a crime. So if you're in the country legally, you got a problem. That's why we're pushing the CBP home map to go on your own. Make your arrangements. Plan your departure. We'll work with you. We'll give you a plane ride. We'll give you money to help you down there. But you can do the CBP home app and get your matters in order. Much more humane process, and we'll help you. But if you gonna make us come find you and put you through this whole process at great taxpayer expense, right, and formally remove you based on a court order, then there are statutory bars placed against you. Right. When you can't come back to the country, take advantage of a tourist visa or visitor visa, or maybe have a U.S. citizen child that can petition for you for someday. Make those legal avenues open to you and leave on your own.
Tom, we'll continue this conversation. I hope you come back.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you.
Now, as promised, I'm going to turn it back to immigration and bring in Camilo Montoya Galvez. Camilo, great to have you. Welcome to the Conversation Corner.
Thank you.
What did you hear from Tom Homan that either did or did not?
Now we know Tom Homan, he's meant business about this immigration thing since he was on the campaign trail, right? Since President Trump started inviting him. So I think he makes a lot of good points. You know, a lot of people will say that they feel like he's harsh or that he comes off kind of callous. I don't think he comes off callous. You know, I think he comes off focused. And to each is his own. Everybody's gonna get a different opinion about him as they listen to him talk and as they see him. And you know, people are gonna conjure up their own opinion about him. I don't think that he is callous. I think he's focused. You know, he's just, you meet those guys and those gals, they're just serious people. You know, like some of them, they smile sometimes or they don't smile often. You know, and that's intimidating to people. And sometimes people take that as they're not personable. I wouldn't agree with that. That's how Tom Homan has always come off to me. You know, when I saw him on the campaign trail, I was like, okay, he's not coming to play. You know, he's like, if President Trump is bringing me in to do this, like, you guys are going to see results. So, when people are like, he's just cold-hearted and he doesn't care who he deports, I don't think that's the case. I think that he's just focused on his job. But he made a great point there when he was talking about sanctuary cities, and he said, I think everyone should want to help. It would be because the news anchor asks him, how different do you think it would be if sanctuary cities not necessarily gave up their status, but let's just say they were more helpful at least, so they didn't have to give up their status. He says it would be a game changer. This would be, everybody should want this. Everyone should want to make America safer, want to make America more affordable. So he says it would be a game changer, but he says if the sanctuary cities are going to make us come in there to get people instead of them just helping us out, well, most of the time, and he has said this before, now I've heard Tom Homan say this many a times, but he has said most of the time an illegal alien is with other illegal aliens. And if we go in to get them, there are going to be other arrests, and they're going to be the kind of arrests that you don't want to see, because they're just going to end up being with other people that they're probably not looking for, but let's just call it guilty by association, right? So yeah, some of those people probably will get let go of, right? Like we saw the father, I think they're from Texas, and the 19-year-old girl. They were both arrested from the same household. They're both out on bond. We don't know how that's going to fully play out, but right now they're both out on bond. But that's what happens. Now, they weren't in that type of situation, but what Tom Homan is saying is, if these sanctuary cities are not going to cooperate, and they're going to force our hand, and we're going to have to start going in on blocks and neighborhoods and things like that. He's like, well then, yeah, the illegal alien is probably going to be associated with other people, and you're going to see arrests you don't really want. When you think about it from that perspective, it's like, then yeah, sure, why not help? Because I know they're not thinking about it from that point of view, because if they were, they would be more willing to help, in a sense of like, you know what, I don't want this 55 or 75-year-old grandmother that's just working, and she's been here and she pays taxes and she doesn't bother anybody and she's never committed a crime since she's been in America. They're not looking for that person. Tom Homan said it. He's like, if you're illegal, you're not off the table. But you have to understand, you're not a priority. And Joe Biden let so many people in the country. Obama deported 3 million when we didn't even have that much of an influx of immigrants as we did with Joe Biden, right? So even if, let's say, Donald Trump and Tom Homan get to Obama's numbers, it's like that would be substantial, but it would also still be almost nothing compared to what was let into the country. So we have to understand, like, when Tom Homan is like, I want more arrests, like, and he's trying to amp it up. I think they're going to 3,000 a day. That's what they talked about. He's being intentional about it. He's like, President Trump brought me on to do a job, and I'm going to do a job. This is why when people try to, it was funny to see people try to pull his heartstrings, right? And work on the emotional side of him and say, oh, will you deport a child? And he will come out and say, he's like, listen, we don't deport children, okay? But if there's a scenario where something like this happened, he's like, you put your child in that situation. Like, why is everybody trying to make it seem like America is the bad guy, right? When you knew you were coming here the wrong way, and then you turn around and you did that, and you still didn't even at least do what you needed to do to make your child legal. So yeah, I know, when they ask Tom Homan things like, what kind of support are you getting as far as immigration? I know that he's getting support. Like, President Trump's cabinet shows some pretty good cohesiveness. Now, you'll have mainstream media come out and say, oh, there's arguing amongst the cabinet. J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, President Trump and Elon Musk. Like, they're always going to come out with this type of stuff and be divisive. But if you actually take a look at them and like, when President Trump sit and he has meetings with them and he lets the media in and how they all interact, like, dude, I mean, you can only behave for so long. If someone really wanted to flip their lid and they were just that undisciplined, believe me, I've even seen it happen in the military. Everyone has a threshold, right? So I just don't think the way the media is trying to spin it is going to work for them. But let's take a listen to the rest of it.
Not comport with what we're seeing actually playing out. How about on courthouses and enforcement actions there?
Well, the border czar said, Major, that the courthouse arrests conducted by ICE are mainly targeting criminals and people he considers to be public safety threats. But that may be true when ICE is going into local, county, and state courthouses overseeing criminal cases for migrants who are in the country legally and also facing criminal prosecution. but we are talking about a different operation targeting immigration courthouses that are attending to the cases of migrants. And this operation is targeting non-criminal and criminal migrants alike who are attending those immigration court hearings overseen by immigration judges that decide not criminal cases, but immigration cases, which are civil matters.
Asylum. That might be an asylum claim or something.
These migrants are non-criminal asylum seekers whose only civil offense in this country is entering the country illegally or remaining here without permission, which is not a federal crime. And so the administration is targeting these migrants and placing them in a fast-track deportation process so they can be deported much more quickly, but there's no criminality assessment tied to this operation. So some of the people being swept up are indeed non-criminal migrants.
And the borders are also told me that if there are those citizen children who are being swept up or those with green card status who are being swept up,
If you guys who are wondering who this gentleman is, the younger gentleman, the bald guy, he actually is Camilo Montoya. He's an immigrant reporter. So that's the reason why you'll see him talking more on that. So I'm not gonna just sit here and say he's extremely liberal, but you know, he does stand in defense of like the immigrant. So he definitely is an immigration reporter. I think he has like sometimes he can have pretty balanced views. Let's just say that. I think he tries to be fair, but you know, let's just finish taking a listen.
it's not ICE's fault. That's the fault of sanctuary cities. How do you evaluate that?
Well, what the borders is arguing is that just because somebody has a U.S. citizen child in the U.S., that does not protect them from deportation if they are in the country illegally, and the administration is targeting some families that include U.S. citizen children and arguing that the parents are deciding to take their U.S. citizen children with them because ICE has no legal authority to deport American citizens.
What you said.
That's right. But what advocates are arguing is that the administration is not adequately informing migrants of their rights and the obstacles that some of these children could face in coming back to the U.S. Legally, they have to be able to come back to the U.S., but we're talking about children, and their parents are now facing multi-year bans for re-entering the country, and obviously cannot come back to the U.S. with their children.
And very quickly, Camila, when the White House order is 3,000 arrests a day, what does that begin to look like?
It was really striking to hear the border czar say that that number is achievable, because just to put it in perspective, Major, during the last year of the Biden administration, fiscal year 2024,
What up,
ICE
Triple?
averaged
Shout out
about
to you.
300 daily arrests, and right now ICE is averaging about 700 daily arrests. So going from 700, the current average, to 3,000 arrests would be an unprecedented expansion of immigration enforcement in this country that many experts say is not possible with the.
I mean, I get why they would say it's not possible because that is a crazy jump. If they're averaging 700 a day, and Tom Homan is saying they're trying to go to 3,000, that means they're going to increase by 2,300 arrests just in a day. It's like that's going to look pretty crazy.
Current staffing and resource levels, but of course, Homan is right that now ICE is getting help from agencies like the FBI, ATF, DEA, and Customs and Border Protection alongside the IRS and other federal agencies. So yes, ICE is getting more help from across the government, but this is still a very significant and ambitious goal.
Camila Montoya Galvez, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I would say that it's a very ambitious goal. I don't think it's impossible for Tom Homan to achieve it. I just think it looks wild. I don't think that when I say I don't think it's impossible for him to achieve it, this will take time. I don't think that they're just gonna go out there and achieve something like this tomorrow. I think that it'll take a lot of intelligence. I think it'll take a lot of scouting. They have to watch. They have to have good intel, solid intel on who to arrest. I think this will take them looking at more gang members, because if we're talking about just 3,000 in general, it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna start to see just a lot more than just criminals getting deported if they're gonna amp it up to 3,000 a day. But they're definitely gonna focus on people who don't have legal citizenship. So it's sometimes Tom Homan could be a hard pill to swallow for people. There's a lot of mixed opinions out there about him. Like I said, I don't think that he's callous. He's never really come off callous to me. just for, and this could literally come from my military background. Like I'm telling you, I've been hand to hand in combat with some of the sweetest dudes ever, but it's like their face would never let you know that. Like their demeanor would never let you know that. As a matter of fact, they look like a stone cold killer. But literally some of the sweetest men I've ever served like hand in hand combat with. So I don't think he's callous. I think he's focused. He has a lot of respect for President Trump. During the campaign trail, he would always come on in. He would always talk about pack your bags. JD Vance pretty much had the same exact message, and this was an ongoing thing for President Trump's let's just call it pre-cabinet, right? Of people that we saw. JD Vance would be like, our message is pack your bags, you're going home. Tom Homan, our message is pack your bags, you're going home. So we saw this all throughout, not only during the RNC, but just through President Trump's campaign rally, So I can appreciate Camilo at least putting some things out there about like the truth about, just because you have a child here, that even if you get the citizenship for them, it does not automatically make you a citizen, and it's very true. But he also brings the argument to where it poses problems for kids who are going to come back to America, and without their parents. And that side of it, I'm not completely ignorant to, right? I think that's wild. I think it's crazy. Like for me, the thought of me being in another country and my child coming back to America without me, it's like there's no way, But if it depends on where they come from, right? They might feel like my child will have a better life. Just go back with me, stay with some family members, do what you need to do to be successful. But there's this own set of risk in that. Everybody has like a weird, creepy Uncle Tom, right? Or like a weird Aunt Betty, and you don't know what these people are like. Like just because, it's like, oh, this is your father's side of the family or your mother. It's like people still get taken advantage of. They still get molested. They still, live horrible lives, even at the hands of immediate family members. So I could still appreciate Camilo bringing that point up, because I know that that's generally a concern for people. All right, guys. So we're going to switch gears and jump onto Kempire's channel. Shout out to Kempire. He's been covering the Diddy trial and doing an excellent job. We've been rocking out with Kempire probably since trial day 8 now, I believe. So today is a small recap of trial day 12. I've already went past some of his promotions and things like that, so we can get started. We're probably going to go about 15 minutes in, and then I want you guys to go to Kempire's channel and give him his due views for his very hard work. So Diddy trial day 12 recap. Let's take a listen.
So let's get into this situation, because there's a lot to unpack. Let me just make sure everything is working. Again, if you've been here and you've been checking out our updates, you know why I'm doing that. Just want to make sure that we're able to get this out. As always, I will be citing my sources. I've been watching the case throughout the day. Shout out to Inner City Press, who's giving us his notes and just the sort of the Q&A that's happening on the stand. We have to talk about 2 witnesses today. Yesterday, we talked about some of the experts that testified, including their former stylist. Deontay Nash was on the stand. They had to change his flight because they did not expect for him to have to come back today. So he was back on the stand this morning, and now Mia, quote Mia, aka Victim 4, is on the stand. And apparently they're going to keep her on the stand for the rest of the week. And from what I last heard, the prosecution basically wanted to end the day with her, and they had questions until the end of the day. So let me just give you some updates, and shout out to our friends again, because they're always over here. I don't know about anyone else. We cite our sources when we get them, okay? So this is from our friends over at NBC News. They said that Deontay Nash, a celebrity stylist and good friend of Cassie Ventura, sidebar, I think I mentioned this in yesterday's video because we did talk about Cassie giving birth. Congrats to her. It was on the stand that Deontay Nash basically spilled the tea that Cassie had given birth, because of course he asked the question, when was the last time that you spoke to Cassie? And he said, on yesterday. I think because yesterday was Wednesday, Tuesday, she had given birth. He has to be honest. But he did not discuss this case. The only thing that he did reveal that he discussed was her asking what she should wear on the stand. Okay. Deontay Nash, a celebrity stylist and good friend of Cassie Ventura, is expected to continue his testimony today. Nash was supposed to finish testifying yesterday, but Combs' defense couldn't finish cross-examination by 4 p.m. Eastern. The government had to reschedule Nash's travel arrangements as the stylist was going to fly out of New York City last night. A woman who is only being referred to by the pseudonym Mia is expected to testify today. The government previously referred to the woman as victim 4 and said that she used to work for Combs as a personal assistant. Mia has been mentioned in prior testimony, notably by Cassie Ventura. Her testimony is expected to take most of the day and tomorrow. In court yesterday, just a summary, the LAPD officer, Christopher Ignacio, testified about responding to a break-in at Kid Cudi's home in 2011. A Los Angeles Fire Department arson investigator, Lance Jimenez, also testified that he found a Molotov cocktail inside Kid Cudi's burned Porsche in early 2012, describing the car fire as, quote, targeted crime. We also discovered that the reason why his car wasn't completely destroyed was because whoever put it in there literally did it incorrectly and it never really ignited the way that I guess they planned. And there was also a battle over fingerprints and things like that and triggering of a mistrial. That was discussed in my conversation with the prosecutor, Kirsten Brown. Again, it's such a great, in combination with everything that we've discussed here on the channel, go watch that video. As I said before, I'm going to include it in the description. I'll also pin it in the comment section for the replay crew. And I'll pin it in the live chat as well, because if you want a true understanding of what we've been hearing and watching and some of the questions that I've been bringing up, I asked her these questions. So Deontay Nash, a celebrity stylist, also testified about the relationship between Combs and Cassie Ventura. Nash testified that he once jumped on Combs' back to keep him from beating Ventura. And a lot of people were saying that this is probably the only person so far, from what we know, that actually tried to intervene when it comes to, and this is not to shame the other people.
That's
I
crazy.
get it. Positions of power.
Yeah, I agree with Kempire. It's not. I know he's not trying to shame other people, but it's just true when he says this, because every single person, even Gene Deal. I don't know if you guys know who Gene Deal is, but if you type his name in YouTube, Gene Deal used to be a bodyguard for Diddy for some time, and Gene Deal was one of the first people coming out talking about all of this stuff that Diddy did and what the type of person he was and what his parties was like, other than Jaguar Wright, right? When Jaguar Wright was doing it, everybody just was like, she's crazy, she's just going on and on, she's lying. And then all of this stuff started to really come out. Shout out to Nitrous TV. I've been watching him for a while, and I mean, he was covering what was going on with Diddy playing Jaguar, right? Reacting to all of these clips, and it's like Nitrous was on it, he was clocking it, and then next thing you know, all of this stuff started to come out. So shout out to him, because I stayed up on a lot of it because of that reason. Like I said, I'm not going to watch everybody because some people aren't going to get to the facts, and he was reacting to a lot of factual stuff. So I appreciated that. So yeah, this guy seems to be one of the only people that has done anything. Even Gene Deal didn't do it. This is a big dude, and he's he didn't do anything. Now he would say something to Puff, he said it. He was like, I would approach him and I would be like, nah, that's not cool. I'm not okay with this. He never kept his mouth shut, but nobody physically has ever stepped in and tried to do anything to the extent of actually putting hands on Diddy and stopping him. So it seems like this guy is one of the only people that's done that. I've literally, as many testimonies as I've heard, even before he went to court, just listening to Gene Deal, Jaguar Wright, certain people talk about just Diddy, his power, his parties, his influence. I've never heard of anybody physically stepping in and grabbing him, touching him, being like, nah, Puff, this isn't cool. So this seems to be one of the first people that's ever done it.
You're feeling that didn't do anything, but we're talking about other big security guards that didn't necessarily intervene.
Yep.
The ones that we know so far. Nash testified that he once jumped on Combs' back to keep him from beating Ventura. He also told the court that Combs threatened to send S-tapes of Ventura to her parents' workplaces to get them fired.
Oh my God.
That's when Regina Ventura testified that they had to refinance their home to get $20,000 only for him to send it back. We talked about that in my conversation with Kirsten Brown. This is a good reference to go back. and watch that. The judge has made it abundantly clear he wants the trial to keep rolling fast so jurors can start deliberations around July 4th. But defense lawyers say that they've not been able to move as quickly due to jailhouse rules that prevent them from meeting with their client, Combs, after 7 p.m. Defense lawyer Mark Agnifilo said in court yesterday that Combs' inability to confer late slows trial prep, meaning the defense has to spend more time debating strategy without direct contact with their client. We just need more access to Mr. Combs, Agnifilo told the court yesterday, asking for court permission to meet with Combs until 10 p.m. Okay. The judge promised to call the jail and see what arrangements could be made. I find these little details actually interesting. I don't know about you guys. I find it to be interesting. Meanwhile, the prosecution said it's running ahead of schedule and could rest by the second week of June. That's in a couple weeks, y'all.
Yeah.
Because June 1st is Sunday. So they could rest by the second week of June or a few days later. The government had earlier said that it could last until June 20th. Cassie Ventura, as we already know, gave birth. They wanted to give us an update. She gave birth on Tuesday, roughly 2 weeks after she took the stand as a witness in Sean Combs' federal trafficking trial. A source familiar with the matter confirmed to NBC News the baby is her third with husband Alex Fine. They already announced that they were having a boy. Court's in session, the judge denied the government's bid to cut all video of key prosecution witness Mia, but he did order a ban against courtroom sketches of victim 4. So we won't see a sketch of Mia. And I'm assuming Mia is not her real name. Assistant U.S. Attorney Madison Smizer had asked for Mia's testimony not to be shown in a court overflow room. Ooh, wow. The judge said it'd be improper to totally keep footage of Mia's testimony from getting out of his court, though he did agree to ban sketches of her in a similar fashion to the standing prohibition against jurors being drawn. The witness admitted that he didn't initially tell prosecutors that Ventura had been allegedly kicked by Combs in one particular attack he witnessed. Nash said that he wanted to answer questions in the most narrow way possible. They didn't ask, he told Combs' attorney, Xavier Donaldson. I gave as little as possible. I only answered what I was asked. He has also, on the stand yesterday, Deontay Nash says that he's been in communication with Diddy even after all of the incidents. He's been, like, in recent years, has been in communication with him. And he says the text messages were, quote, loving.
Oh!
Loving.
Yes.
How do you sleep at night?
On a mattress. A mattress.
Okay. After breaking up with Combs, Ventura began communicating with Black Panther actor Michael B. Jordan. Michael B. Jordan's name has come up a couple of times during this trial, according to Nash. Apparently Nash was the one who tried to hook them up. So dating, talking, getting to know each other, the witness said during cross-examination. And it's so interesting because we talked about this before. Diddy also dated Lori Harvey before Michael B. Jordan, only for Lori Harvey to end up dating Michael B. Jordan. Are there no other men in Hollywood? Again, some people might go, it's Michael B. Jordan. Nash admitted under cross-examination that from 2008 to 2013, Ventura never mentioned to him about the freak-offs that she performed for Combs. The defense's implication would be that the freak-offs weren't as troubling as Ventura has described. Or maybe it was just really embarrassing. Do you tell your friends? And I don't know, yes, they're friends. I don't know how close of friends, because remember, he was also a personal stylist as well. It was probably also at one particular point being paid by Diddy. I wouldn't blame her for probably not telling that many people. We had this conversation with the attorney as well in regards to a small majority of people do not tell a lot of people in their lives about the abuses that they're, not a small majority, a lot of people that are in abusive relationships do not tell anyone what they're going through. If anything, you may tell one person. The defense implication would be that the freak-offs weren't as troubling as Ventura has described if she failed to mention them to a friend like Nash. Deontay Nash testified that he saw Mia on a video call with Ventura and she had a black eye visible. So he's mentioning Mia in his testimony. He says Nash testified that he saw Mia on a video call with Ventura and she had a black eye visible. He says, I saw it in person. When her makeup wears off, you can see it, Nash said.
Okay.
Whoa. Nash recalled a time when he spotted a random man joining Ventura in her Las Vegas hotel room without Combs' presence. The testimony could feed the defense's narrative that Ventura had sex with strangers as a normal part of her life, and not as a forced act at Combs' direction. The freak-offs allegedly ordered by Combs are central to the prosecution's allegations that he used his business to engage in trafficking and other crimes. A former personal assistant to Combs, who will be referred to only by the pseudonym Mia, has taken the stand. She's expected to testify to the forced labor and racketeering charges in the indictment. Again, for those that want a better understanding of what the prosecution has done so far in order to start that puzzle piece, those puzzle pieces, putting that together, we talked about that as well with the attorney. The prosecution entered Mia's passport into court records under seal, with her true name and date of birth shown only to the jurors. Witnesses normally take the witness stand and state their name in open court for the record. But this witness is only being referred to by a pseudonym, Mia. She previously worked for Combs as a personal assistant. Mia described working for Combs, and for those that are in the live chat, please do not speculate on who Mia is. If the court is trying to protect her identity, let's not speculate on who this could possibly be. Mia described working for Combs as chaotic and toxic, but said that it could be exciting. The highs were really high and the lows really low. Puff's mood determined the environment. He threw things at me, he threw me against the wall, threw me in the pool. He threw something against my head and SA'd me. She said that he SA'd her on more than one occasion. Combs had gone by several names in the past, including Puff Daddy, hence the nickname Puff. That was his first name that people remember him by, that he changed it.
Yeah.
Mia testified that when she traveled with Combs and stayed at his property, locking her own bedroom wasn't allowed. Puff said, "This is my house and no one locks the doors," the witness said. That rule didn't seem to apply to the predominantly male security team that stayed in rooms with deadbolts and keypad locks, Mia recalled. It sounded like he wanted to be predatory. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Mia said as an assistant, she manages Combs' social media presence, served as the main liaison between Combs and Hollywood, managed his daily routine, kept him on his schedule, and protected him and his privacy. She said that she had to stay attached to her BlackBerry and stay within Combs' eyesight, as well as anticipate his needs and his whims and moods. Every single day is different, can be 17,000 things at one time, range from cracking knuckles, doing taxes, or writing his next movie. He can also have you stand next to him for 24 hours and not ask you to do one thing. Whoa. Mia said that she and Ventura grew close and became like sisters, best friends, during their time working with Combs. Ventura said Ventura and Combs had a rocky relationship, Mia said, with highs and lows that often included abuse by the defendant. She still keeps in close contact today, Mia said. When Mia was asked what would happen when she did something without Combs' permission, she said, "It would be bad, serious. She and Cassie Ventura would get in trouble. The punishment was unpredictable and terrifying. If Ventura didn't pick up Combs' phone call, multiple people would call and text her, and security would show up if they couldn't find her." Mia said that she saw a lot of the aftermath of Combs' and Ventura's relationship. She said that she saw Ventura with injuries. She also saw Combs attack Ventura and throw her on the ground, she said. "I've seen him crack her head open," Mia said. She did not recall ever seeing Ventura fight back. Ventura never fought back against Combs during multiple violent attacks, Mia said. In one particular disturbing incident, Mia said that she found Ventura hiding from Combs outside in bushes with a terrified look in her eye. Ventura suffered a nasty cut on her forehead after Combs attacked her at the victim's Los Angeles apartment, the witness said. Mia testified that she tried to stop the beatings by jumping on Combs' back before the music mogul threw her against the wall. It was so...
Wow, so I'm listening to the story and it's like, I guess I didn't hear him the first time. Maybe I just was zoned out a little bit, but it's like, okay. So the first person that ever does anything to Diddy from a physical standpoint and tries to stop him, it's literally a woman. This is literally a woman, and this guy was surrounded around dudes. Like, I mean, whether they were celebrities, whether they were big bodyguards, whether they were just his friends, it didn't matter. He was surrounded around dudes, and this woman is the only one that physically jumped on his back to actually stop him. That's hilarious.
So fast, but I felt like I was in slow motion.
Shout out to Mia.
I saw him grab Cass, and I couldn't get there fast enough. The bed platform was the sharpest I had ever seen, and he threw her, and she hit her head on the corner of the bed. The witness continued. She had a pretty big scar on her forehead, which was split open and blood was coming out. Mia recalled an incident in 2012 when she and Cassie Ventura went out to party without Combs' permission. They were all in a suite at the Beverly Hills Hotel, and Combs had directed Mia to stay there with Ventura as he was going to be with his kids. Mia said a friend called and said Prince was having a party. It was all connecting the dots for those of us that have been following this case since day one. Mia said that a friend called and said Prince was having a party, and she and Ventura, like little kids, snuck out of the house. They went to Prince's party and were having fun when Combs showed up. I saw his bucket hat coming through the entrance. We locked eyes, and crap, Cass and I started running through the house to get across the yard, trying to run and hide there, Mia explained. Puff caught Cass, he caught up to her and had her and threw her to the ground and started to attack her. Mia said Prince's security intervened. The next day, Mia was notified that she was being suspended without pay, and Combs said that she was being insubordinate.
Wow.
Whoa. So they take a lunch break for the day, so I'll take a little bit of a break in this video. Guys, don't forget to like the video. It's an easy and free way of supporting not just my channel, but other Mia recalled. They pushed furniture to block the front door. Scary confrontation in 2012, several hours before it premiered here on YouTube. So, if you're not subscribed to the Empire Podcast, you might want to. Let's get back to the Diddy Combs trial. The witness recalled a scary confrontation in 2012 when she and Ventura were barricaded into a beachside room, hiding from an enraged Combs during a vacation in the Turks and Caicos Islands. They pushed furniture to block the front door as Combs was allegedly banging and screaming to be let inside. I was looking at Cass and she was screaming for help, and you have to help me, Puff is going to kill me, Mia recalled. She's usually chill and calm, and she was terrified. The pair dashed out a back door to the beach and out to a paddleboard, allowing them to flee into the water.
Okay, so at this point, Cassie and Mia are literally running from Diddy while they're at Prince's party, trying to hide from him like little children and save their own lives. And I think that that's crazy. I'm going to stop right there on Kempire, and I want you guys to go to his channel, Kempire, and watch the rest of it. Give him his due views for his good work. Shout out to you, Kempire. I'm subscribed to him on my main channel, but I'll do it on this channel as well. Yeah, so we're gonna keep following the recaps of Diddy. I like to watch the quick recaps. Like I said, for some people, this is a triggering trial, just because of the things, the abuse that's going on, the things that are being heard during the trial. People who have dealt with abuse, it can be triggering for them. And for those of us that are not big on mental health, we might think to ourselves, what is a trigger, or what's the big deal? If you get triggered, move on. It's not always that easy. It depends on the person. So that's why I went to short recaps for the day. My wife is not a huge fan of this trial at all. And if I'm honest, neither am I, because it's just a mess. But, you know, we're keeping up with it because that's what we do here on Cozy Corner TV, right? In real life, news, we react by commentary, conservatism, religion, liberalism. Like, we touch on all the things, even if it's controversial. So shout out to Kempire. You guys go over there and watch his channel. And I thought it was very interesting. Triple said something that I wanted to address in the comments. Shout out to Triple. Sometimes when you've had enough abuse in any form, you snap and protect yourself. You finally lose fear and slip into survival mode. Exactly, and that's exactly what seems to be happening with Cassie. You know, she never fought back, and I think that I'm not saying that that's okay in a sense where she should have done that, but that's just a reaction. Sometimes the lack of reaction is a reaction, right? We have flight, we have fight, and then we also have fawn, right? And if you fawn, it's kind of like you kind of just give in, like in a way where it's like you're in survival mode because you think to yourself, if I give in, I'll live. If I give in, I won't get that hurt. If I give in, the situation won't be as bad. I might actually survive this and be able to get away, right? So, and like I said, I've said on my channel, I've been transparent and said that's man or woman. Like, it depends on what the woman is doing. I've known men that literally have going to church with makeup on because they're hiding bruises, right? Just like women do it. So when people are in these type of relationships and we get in these bad situations, we have to remember that our body is going to react based on what we've been through historically. For some of us, some people could be in that relationship with Diddy and he goes to bed and they're going to stab him. Like, literally, that's their version of survival mode. They're like, if I don't kill this person, I'm going to die. So some people will react like that. Some people, they will wait until he's at a party and he's completely inebriated and he can't tell blue from black, and they're going to like run out the back door and leave the country, right? And then you have Cassie, where there was a lot of mixed things going on. She said she was a young woman. She didn't have much control in her life at that time with Diddy, which I can believe that with the age gap and the type of person that he appears to be in the public eye right now. And yeah, her survival mode was, if I leave, I'm going to die, so it's best if I just give in, right? And it's a really sad situation because it's giving narcissistic, it's giving abuser. Again, we don't know every single detail because the only people that were in those rooms at that time were Diddy, Cassie, and whoever he hired at the time. So nonetheless, we'll keep track of it. We'll see what Kempire puts out for it tomorrow, and every time he posts or make somebody like Jesse Weber or Jerica Duncan, we'll go back and we'll just keep up with the Diddy trial. All right, guys, so we're going to switch gears and go over to Fox News clips. Left's reaction to Elon Musk reveals its hypocrisy, Ted Cruz says. I believe this is referring to Elon Musk's comments about President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Like I said, I don't think he was very critical about it. I think he just stated his own humble opinion and kept it moving, but we know mainstream media, especially left-leaning mainstream media, they're going to take something and they're going to completely pervert it. So let's take a look at what Sean Hannity has to say.
Anyway, we're here with more Texas Senator Ted Cruz, and for all of that, the thanks he gets is, death threats and violence against Tesla dealerships, Tesla charging stations, and Tesla cars. Great.
Well, listen, the left's reaction to Elon Musk shows what utter hypocrites they are. We've seen for the better part of a decade, the left screaming that climate change is going to end humanity and nothing matters more than stopping the internal combustion engine and moving to electric vehicles. Elon Musk started what became the largest electric vehicle manufacturer in the world, Tesla. And 5 years ago, Elon was a hero to the left. And then he had the temerity to actually speak the truth, to support Donald Trump, to speak up against the madness of open borders, to speak up against the insanity of men and women's sports, to speak up against the woke mind virus. And the left decided he was Adolf Hitler. He was the embodiment of evil. They're engaged in domestic terrorism against him. What you said is exactly right. I think the American people ought to be saying to Elon, thank you, thank you, thank you. He came and spent 4 months working for the American people free of charge, didn't collect a salary, made nothing. He rooted out massive waste, fraud, and abuse, and he did so at enormous cost to himself. You look at his stock holdings dropped tens of billions of dollars. It was a personal sacrifice, and the death threats that were directed against him were massive. I think Elon is an extraordinary entrepreneur, an extraordinary business leader. As you know, I interviewed Elon on my podcast, Verdict with Ted Cruz. I spent an hour one-on-one with Elon in the White House. It's absolutely fascinating, his mind, the way it works. Sean, you and I have both known a lot of really smart people in the world. I got to say, Elon is hands down the smartest person I've ever met. Out of 8 billion people, if you assume a normal distribution, someone is at the bleeding edge of the bell curve, and that guy's name is Elon.
I totally agree, and I'm grateful for all he did. And by the way, I bought a Tesla, and kind of in solidarity, and I gave one away on my radio show, and it's the best car I've ever driven, the best engineered car. It is the fastest car, the most fun car. It's really amazing. Let me ask you the big story of the day, and that is, you know, if you want to call it Dementiagate, we can call it Dementiagate, but obviously this is, to me, the biggest White House scandal by far.
Okay, so I just caught what he said. Okay, so Sean Hannity says if you want to call it Dementia Gate, we'll call it Dementia Gate. That's in reference to the Watergate scandal, right? Because Bill O'Reilly went on record to say that the cover-up of former President Joe Biden's mental decline is going to be one of the biggest cover-up stories in presidential history. Bill O'Reilly says that he thinks it's going to be bigger than Watergate. So I just think it's hilarious that Sean Hannity just said, if you want to call it Dementia Gate, then we can call it that. That's crazy.
In our lifetimes, if not in the history of our republic, the fact that it was cognitively compromised, everybody knew, and everybody, you know, we have no idea who was in charge, no idea at all whatsoever, but clearly everybody knew he was not up to the job, and they hid it from the American people.
Sean, it was fundamental dishonesty, and it was deliberate. The Democrats were lying. Every Democrat senator was lying. Every Democrat House member was lying. Every Democrat cabinet member was lying, and the entire corporate media was lying. You know, just a week ago, Jake Tapper broke this bombshell book that Biden's mental decline was covered up by Jake Tapper. Because Jake Tapper and CNN were utterly complicit in covering it up, and apparently he suddenly discovered.
We call him Big Jake on this.
And they knew.
Show. Now he's going to prop it off, and after you know, excoriating Laura Trump, and then saying, "Oh, I called her up, and she was right, I was wrong." No kidding. I want to get to the bottom of it. We've got to know how bad this was. And it shows the depth of Trump derangement syndrome. Last question. What's the status in the Senate on the one big beautiful bill, Senator? There has been some resistance expressed publicly. Are you confident that bill will get marked up and go to conference with the House and we'll come up with a final bill?
Absolutely. We will get it done. Now, it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be messy. But we will get it done because it is the main vehicle for us to deliver on the mandate from the voters. We're going to secure the border. We're going to rebuild the military. We're going to cut taxes. And I hope and believe the Senate is going to cut spending more than the House, that we're going to see the Senate be more fiscally conservative and to stop bankrupting this country. That's what we need to
do. You've got to admit that.
It will, but
I hope so.
But here's my argument, Sean. There are 53 Republicans in the Senate. I think the 50th most fiscally conservative senator is to the right of the 218th most fiscally conservative House member. Now we just need to stand up and do the right thing.
Oh boy. Conference might be a little tense, but we'll get there. Senator Ted Cruz, thank you. Hey, Sean Hannity.
Shout out to Senator Ted Cruz from Texas. You know, he makes a great point when he talks about that everyone in the White House during former President Joe Biden's administration, he said they were all lying. And you know, I'm sitting listening to him, and I want to say, I'm like, come on, Ted, that's a little bit harsh. Like they were all lying. But it's hard to think that they didn't all see him every single day and someone didn't know what was going on. I talked about this on a live stream probably now about 4 days ago. But I said, like, do we really need to know the president's, you know, his decline? I said maybe not at first. So when I said that, I was talking about, and I was talking in reference strictly to prostate cancer and how Chris Cuomo went on record to say to Bill O'Reilly that there are men who live with prostate cancer every single day, and it's not debilitating. Like they can live day to day, you know, they can do certain activities. Like it's not like the person is in a wheelchair necessarily, or not that necessarily that would be a horrible thing, but you have people that don't want to see a world leader in a wheelchair, right? But they're saying that, you know, the guy can walk, he can carry out his day-to-day activities as the president. It's not like he's an NFL player with prostate cancer, right? So that's what he was kind of getting at. So I said, okay, maybe not in the very beginning, because someone in the very beginning stages of prostate cancer wouldn't be losing their mind. They wouldn't be experiencing a mental decline. So at that point, I'm like, okay, maybe not so much, right? But when you see a lot more conservative people coming out and they're saying the American people have a right to know, right? You're going to have the liberals fighting back on this and saying, well, what about privacy, right? Like, why do the American people have a right to know everything? Okay, so maybe not everything, but if the president is getting to a point where he can't do interviews, he can't be in the public eye, he's tripping up and down the steps, he's falling on stage, he's dazed out to where a former president has to grab his hand and literally guide him off stage, I would say, like Houston, we have a problem, right? At that point, there should be some announcements being made because now it's happening in front of the American people. But yet they still try to sell the story of no, everything was fine. Like he was one of the sharpest people that we knew at the time. Like there was nothing going on, and it's given deception and it's really bad. All right, guys. So sticking with Fox News clips. GOP good old party senator makes major announcement about investigation into Biden's cognitive decline. Let's take a listen. Okay, so I don't know if there's going to be a formal investigation about former President Joe Biden's mental decline, but a lot of people have been hinting towards this, and they're like, listen, this cognitive decline thing, like we got to figure out what was going on. We need to know the answers. And when you have people like Bill O'Reilly, and you have people like Sean Hannity, and you have people like Ted Cruz, and you have people like Elon Musk, you have people like Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio saying these things, I'm like, there's a good chance a formal investigation may happen. So let's take a listen.
Autopilot, auto pin. More evidence to support the latter, that it's the auto pin as we learn about Biden's decline cover-up. This is new. A pro-energy group says half a dozen Biden executive actions related to climate should be null and void since they were signed by an auto pin without any public comment from Biden confirming he knew about those orders.
So now, of course, this is going to be in question because of his mental decline. So now they're talking about the auto pin, and they're saying at least half a dozen. So they're saying at least 6 EOs, right, referring to climate change were signed with the auto pin, and they don't believe that President Biden even knew that was going on. They don't believe that he even, and maybe it's because they feel like the legislation is so radical, but they're like, we don't believe that he knew what was going on. Who had the auto pin? Like who actually used the auto pin to sign these executive orders? Now, from the prostate cancer diagnosis to now the cognitive decline, so now people are like, what was going on with the auto pin? Did he even know what was going on in the White House? Who had the auto pin? Was it someone else who used it? So yeah, things are spiraling pretty quickly.
As the group calls for an investigation into that, the big question still remains, why is all of this coming to light just now? Where was the media? Where were Democrats? Where was the administration? Well, one member of the Media Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg doesn't seem to understand my role, his role, our role in the media.
I don't understand how this narrative is developed that no one in the media...
What was this? Why? So the Atlantic covered this. Why Biden shouldn't run in 2024. Biden is by no means the more eloquent character he was in his younger days. It can be painful to watch him give prepared speeches. His tone can be tentative and certain sentences can become hopscotching journeys. Wow. His aides in the room look visibly nervous at times. Biden worked to overcome a stutter during his youth. And in general, it can become more difficult for stutters to conceal these effects as they age.
Don't understand how this narrative is developed that no one in the media, that the media was covering for Biden. I think what might be going on here is a lack of understanding about how reporting works. In order to prove that he's diminished, you have to have people, sources inside telling you this.
Yeah, that's
It's
one
not
point.
true. You need eyes, you need ears, you need
I mean, I get it. Like, so I see what he's saying. He's like, he's saying that people are saying that we were covering this up intentionally as the mainstream media. He's like, but in order to accurately report on something, you need sources, right? He's going to say that that's not true. But I will say to the other gentleman's point, he's not completely wrong. Like, you don't want to just, he's going to say you need ears, you need eyes, but it's like, you don't want to be a reporter or a journalist and come on, someplace like CNN or Fox News and say, I was just at a White House party and I happen to be watching the former president or the president at the time, and he tripped up 3 steps, so I think he has dementia. Like, that's not accurate reporting. So to his point, I understand what he's saying. I don't think if I even saw something like that, I would necessarily report that because I don't have much context. Like, is he tired? Did he not get any sleep? Even though they called him Sleepy Joe, I don't know. Did he not get any sleep? He's an older gentleman, so is he not sleeping? Did he have a couple drinks at the party? I mean, you know, people trip and fall when they're frustrated. I don't know if you guys actually believe that, but it actually does happen to people. So there could be lots of reasons why something like that would happen. And if I just saw a scenario like that at a White House party, I wouldn't report on that either.
Common sense. That's how you begin the process
So
of
ears, eyes, and common sense. But, you know, yeah, that's again, I'm saying that's like being in a situation and just seeing something, and because you have common sense, well, yeah, you know, he tripped up a couple of steps, so he has to have dementia, but I don't think that that's good enough context to report that like that.
not true. You need eyes, you need ears, you need common sense. That's how you begin the process of reporting. And if somebody's not willing to tell you the truth, it doesn't preclude you from telling the truth. One of the things I noticed for years of doing sports media is there's a horrible trend in the media. And it is to say what is easy and what is popular. But don't stop there. Swim out into the middle of the river. Find that main channel. Stay within the safe space. But then try to be the most passionate. Try to be the most inflammatory in saying the thing that everyone already believes. Over the last decade, it's been popular and easy to say that President Trump is guilty of breaking the law, or President Trump is a would-be authoritarian. That was safe in their circles, and they ran into insanity. To be the loudest and most inflammatory in saying those things. They defended President Biden at every turn. And I am, for one, exhausted today to wake up and continue to give credit and see the revelations of the mainstream media reporting the sky is blue for years of telling us the sky is red when you and I know the sky is blue. So I am exhausted of hearing stuff like this from Jake Tapper.
We never got somebody that said, we should never have done this. I can't believe we did it. In retrospect, it was a mistake. How arrogant we were. I mean, even, you know, there was a top White House aide who acknowledged to me that this short 10, 15-minute interview I did with Joe Biden in October 2022, he would not have been capable of doing in October 2023. I think that most were telling the truth as much as they had come to terms with it themselves, but I do wonder where they will be in a year.
You know, enough.
Most of them were telling, okay, Jake Tapper. What kind of madness was that?
Wonder where they will be in a year. Most were telling the truth. Interview I did with Joe Biden in October 2022, he would not have been capable of doing in October 2023.
So that's already one strike against Jake Tapper. A White House aide already revealed to him that a 15-minute interview he did with Joe Biden in 2022, Joe Biden would not be able to repeat that same interview in 2023. Okay, so if a White House aide gave Jake Tapper that information and Jake Tapper is reporting on CNN, why didn't Jake Tapper report that information? Because at that time, that wouldn't be hearsay, and that wouldn't be Jake Tapper speculating, right? He would have a source that sees Joe Biden daily, right? A White House aide that told him, hey, he's not going to be able to have that type of interview. He's not going to be able to be as present as he was a year prior if he has the same interview with you. So he could have reported that, but he didn't. He held on to that information and he put it in his little book called Original Sin. So it's an interesting title.
I think that most were telling the truth as much as they had come to terms with it themselves.
Second strike. Most of them were telling the truth as much as they've come to grips within themselves. So basically, they were all lying to themselves. That's like, what are we talking about here? They were all telling the truth based on how much they've come to grip with it in themselves. The truth was that the former president was declining and no one was talking about it. So they were basically all lying to themselves. Man, Jake Tapper.
But I do wonder where they will be in a year.
You know, enough of Jake Tapper. Led the nerve to tell Stephen A. Smith that he also now sees that Letitia James was engaged in lawfare. We knew that. Those of us willing to tell the truth were called conspiracy theorists. We were called irresponsible. I don't need to wake up today once more to hear a new revelation from Jake Tapper for something you and I knew for the past half a decade. But there is something new today. It's a Senate Judiciary Committee, which just announced in the last 10 minutes that they're going to hold a hearing on June 18th to investigate who was running the country during Joe Biden's.
Oh man, so they are going to do it. June 18th, Senate Judiciary hearing on Biden decline. Oh man. It's about to get interesting, guys.
Investigate who was running the country during Joe Biden's cognitive decline. Our next guest is the senator driving that hearing. He is Texas
June
Senator
18th,
John
they're
Cornyn
really
joins
gonna
me
do
here.
a hearing on
Senator, great to
this.
see you.
Great to see you. Welcome back home.
I'm glad, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear about this. I think I speak for many out there in America that say we need real accountability. So tell me how this will begin the process of real accountability.
Well, we need to get past the failures of the media, which were legend, as you pointed out, or the political issue of were you for Biden or against Biden. This is about a constitutional crisis where we basically have an incompetent, mentally incompetent president who's not in charge. So the question is, who is in charge? Whose finger is on the nuclear button or that has the nuclear codes? Who can declare war? How do we defend the nation when we have basically an absent president? And those are constitutional issues we need to address and correct.
Senator Cornyn, you're not one known for inflammatory language, respectfully. And so when I hear you say today we have a constitutional crisis and whose finger was on the nuclear button, literally, who was responsible for war and peace, it's the right exact question to be asking about what happened in this country. Now, the names you point out need to be investigated. Is it the chief of staff? Is it the first lady? Is it the first son? But if we find those names, the question then becomes what real accountability can be. Now, we looked this up. Carrie Urbahn, who's a Fox News legal analyst, we asked what crimes potentially could have been committed. And we're going to share this with the viewers. Here are some crimes on the screen I want you to take a look at.
All right, so possible crimes committed by Biden aides if they signed the president's name. So this is if someone was using the auto pen. Article 18 USC Section 471, forgery of United States documents. Article 18 USC Section 912, impersonation of a federal officer. That one's ugly. Article 18 USC Section 1001, false statements. Article 18 USC Section 371, conspiracy to defraud the United States. That's horrible. Article 18 Sections 1503 and 1512, obstruction of justice. Article 18 USC Sections 1341 and 1343, wire or mail fraud. Right, those are some ugly charges.
That if these things were done are potentialities. Forgery, that has to do with auto pen. Impersonation of a federal officer. Conspiracy to defraud the United States. I looked up some of these crimes today, Senator. Now, the hard thing is there's no jurisprudence and precedent behind a lot of these things.
Right.
But by the letter of the law, these people would be guilty of these crimes.
Well, that's why we've asked Pam Bondi.
Yeah, oh Lord. They have Pam Bondi involved. Oh gosh. Yeah, it's about to get crazy.
Today, Senator. Now, the hard thing is there's no
this one right here, guys, this forgery of United States documents, this is where the auto pen comes into play. I think Will Kane said that. But yeah, this is where everyone's like talking about the half dozen EOs, especially the ones in reference to climate change. Yeah, they're like, was President Joe Biden even president when these were signed? Like, who had the auto pen? So this, the false statements can be in reference to the auto pen. Impersonation of a federal officer can be in reference to the auto pen, or that can be in reference to what the former senator said when he said whose hand is on the nuclear button, who can declare war. Yeah, this is all not good.
Oh, the hard thing is there's no jurisprudence and precedent behind a lot of these things.
Right.
But by the letter of the law, these people would be guilty of these crimes.
Well, that's why we've asked Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, to look into this to see what federal laws have been violated. And the ones you mentioned, well, it makes sense to me.
Dude, so if they're gonna do this on June 18th and they ask Pam Bondi to get involved, this is crazy. because okay. So we know the AG, like if Pam Bondi finds something, she's bringing charges. Like she's been like that since President Trump has appointed her, and she doesn't play. Like, and people are like, oh my God, Pam Bondi is such a tyrant, and she doesn't care. So the fact that they have her involved in this, I'm like, oh boy, they got the AG involved.
Certainly we need to ask, have these been violated? But Congress's responsibility is actually bigger than just that. It is to provide oversight and to make sure that there's more transparency for future presidents so we understand how this happened and how can we prevent it from happening again.
Well, I, for one, will take our side of this table, and I'll say from our side, the media has to.
It's that. It is to provide oversight and to make sure that there's more transparency for future presidents so we understand how this happened and how can we.
See, that's Joe Biden right there trying to, like, he doesn't know which way to exit the stage. So he's like asking the stage aides, do I go this way or do I go that way? And then you see him kind of take off this way.
Prevent it from happening again.
Well, I, for one, will take our side of this table, and I'll say from our side, the media has to be willing to tell the truth. And I'd like to think that we did that here at Fox News, and shame on those, and reputations never to be recovered. No credibility for those that just now discovered what happened. We hope that on your side of the table, you can help provide real accountability. It's a real danger to America.
Absolutely. This is times of war and peace. Who's the president? Who's signing executive orders? You mentioned the auto pen. Who is running the country? Right. Those are things that ought to concern every American.
Before you run and before you get back to D.C., let me just ask you really quickly about the big, beautiful bill. There's several senators who have said, for various reasons, by the way, some are concerned about Medicaid cuts, some are concerned the cuts aren't deep enough, the savings to the deficit not serious.
See, all of these clips right here that they're showing while Will Kane's talking, all of these are clips where Joe Biden is utterly confused. Like, he has no idea which direction to go in. And this line right here, he's standing in line with a bunch of women, and the aide comes and kind of whispers to him, and then he goes off to the side. You know, he salutes in the wrong direction one time, and then he kind of turns around and darts off the stage. So it's like, it's things like that that I'm saying, like, this stuff was right in front of the eyes of the American people, yet they were still pushing the narrative, oh no, he's fine, there's nothing going on, there's nothing wrong with him.
Here at Fox News, and shame on those, and reputations never to be recovered. No credibility for those that just now discovered what happened. We hope that on your side of the table, you can help provide real accountability. It's a real danger to America.
Absolutely. This is times of war and peace. Who's the president? Who's signing executive orders? You mentioned the auto pen. Who is running the country? Right. Those are things that ought to concern every American.
Before you run and before you get back to D.C., let me just ask you really quickly about the big, beautiful bill. There's several senators who have said, for various reasons, by the way, some are concerned about Medicaid cuts, some are concerned the cuts aren't deep enough, the savings to the deficit not serious enough. Where do we stand? You can see on the screen.
Okay. GOP, good old party senators hesitant on spending bill. Okay, so we got Rand Paul, Mike Lee, Ron Johnson, and Rick Scott. All Republican senators. Rand Paul's from Kentucky, Mike Lee's from Utah, Ron Johnson's from Wisconsin, and Rick Scott's from Florida.
Green, those senators that have publicly professed their concern about the bill. Where do we stand on the bill?
Well, we have 53 Republicans, and we need to get to the magic number 51, which means that we're going to have to get virtually everybody on board. But I think looking at building on what the House has done in terms of savings,
They have 53 Republicans. They got to get to the magic number of 51. So they need all hands on deck. Not really. They need at least 2. If all 51 come, but if 53 come, they will be in a better position. But so really they can only have 1 to 2 Republicans that don't agree with this and still be okay. And that doesn't mean that no Democrat senators will vote on it, but you know, the government's a bit divided right now with everyone being so mad and Trump's bad and Trump bad. So it's like, yeah, we don't know if any Democrats will come over to help the bill pass, but we'll see.
Musk and Doge have identified incredible examples of egregious misspent taxpayer dollars. Kevin Hassett, who was just on your show, talked about that and talked about the rescissions and the like. There's a lot of work that we can do to build on what the House did and get it to the president.
Those rescission bills only require 51 senators as well. And so here's hoping that the one coming now for $9.4 billion is just the start. That hopefully you'll be having to vote on dozens and dozens.
Amen.
All right, Senator Cornyn, it's great to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you, Will.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey,
So hopefully, the Republicans are able to get, the Republicans on board that they need. Because if not, it can mean a pretty nasty tax hike. I mean, I'm saying pretty nasty and I'm being a bit facetious because it's really ugly. But, Will King, to his point of the American people deserve to know in the questions that were being asked, I'm really glad that he covered the fact that this is happening on June 18th. With Pam Bondi involved and them taking a look, President Trump's administration taking a look into who was running the country, like, okay, we're seeing all of this mental decline now, and we saw it so much right after, especially post-debate, but we saw a lot pre-debate. Post-debate, it was really like a smack in the face to everyone, to where you had Van Jones, you had news anchors, celebrities, so many people were like just distraught, and you literally had people watch that debate and say, I was still going to rock with Joe Biden. Like I said, he was very beloved. He was in government for a long time. I'm not saying everyone loved him, but he had his people that he was very beloved. So them looking into that, this is going to be interesting. I'm definitely going to be following that. If that's going to start up on June 18th, you guys want to show up here because we're definitely going to be tracking that. All right, guys, so here we are towards the end of the live stream, where I end the live stream with Christian content every single night. Shout out to Mike with the mic. Mike with the mic is an evangelist. He usually goes out and about around Australia, evangelizing, talking to people, interacting with people, and spreading the gospel. And here in Australia, he has an encounter with the police again, because it happens often. He is walking around the public square with a sign that says Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. That would be the Bible verse, John 14, verse 6. These security guards kind of come up to him and they start talking to him about having a sign. And Mike's pushing back, saying, what law am I actually breaking? Like, we're here in Australia, the Constitution says I can do this. And, they're just kind of giving him pushback for just walking around with the sign. So we're going to take a couple minutes to watch with this. I'm not going to watch the whole thing because I want you guys to go over to Mike's channel so you can finish this and watch some of his content. So let's take a listen.
Sure, good. How do you? All right.
Hey, sir.
Yeah, how you
Is it
going?
the word for you over
Yeah,
here?
sure. This was fine.
Hi.
G'day, how you going?
Constable Barry Clerk.
Yes, how are you going?
Police station. Yeah, good. How are you?
Good. I'm good.
So, I understand that these gentlemen, the security, do you understand that?
I understand the security.
So they're giving you just a simple request just to leave a sign. They do have bylaws here in this area.
Yes.
You refuse to comply with them. You've also failed to stop the speed of the security guard.
Okay.
Now, since then, they've asked you multiple times, as I understand, because I've had dealt with them in the past.
Right.
They've tried to be reasonable with you.
Okay. Tell me what the crime I've done, please. You're not? Well, okay, I've done nothing.
You're going to have to leave.
No, you're going to have to tell me what I'm doing wrong, or I'm not going anywhere.
Sorry, it's police station.
Yes.
Shout out to you,
You're
Trevor.
welcome.
See you next time.
No, there's no move on direction going to happen here.
Become argumentative with security.
And I'll become argumentative with you as well. But unless you can tell me what I've done wrong. Yeah, I don't, listen, this is Australia, right? The Constitution of Australia says I can preach religion anywhere in Australia, all right? That's all I'm doing. And I'm not even doing that. I'm just walking around looking at that. Why?
Because there's bylaws governing this place.
I'm not interested in bylaws. I'm interested in being free.
And you're breaching, okay?
Well, I'm not breaking any law. It is not a local law. It is not a state law. It is not a national law.
This ground here is governed by bylaws.
All right. What are you going to do? You're going to arrest me?
I don't want to at this point.
Well, you can if you like, because on principle, I'm not going to leave, because I'm an Australian citizen, and I can do it.
I don't know.
No, well, you can do it.
You are.
So,
You're right. You're
David,
very rude.
So,
If I can't walk anywhere in Australia with this sign, there is a problem. If you want to take the authority, if you want to take the initiative to arrest, no, I'm not, because all you've said is you're going to arrest me for walking on this land with this sign. Is that what you've said? Is that what you've said? Is that what you've said? I can't have the sign
okay, so you guys
because of some bylaw. What about what I want to do? What about being free? This is Australia. My name's Mike. just walk with me and talk. We just
Well, of course I can do all that, but this is on, this is for our protection, you know that? Yes, of course we're allowed to. Of course. Oh. Look, this is a silly Bible. What harm, tell me what harm it does. I know, but what harm does it do? What harm am I doing? Am I doing anything really wrong? Yeah.
So you know you won't talk.
I won't listen because you're going round in circles about me doing something wrong.
You've got to talk to me at stage one. You've got to talk to my colleague at stage one. It's not the sign as much as the issue.
And what's your name, sir?
James.
James, I asked you which bylaw it was, what was the exact regulation, and what did it mean? Yeah, but tell me what it means. That means nothing to me. What does it say, sir?
I explain signs inside. Promoting commercial.
I'm not, yes, no commercial.
So I wanted to stop and talk to you about this and read it. You know what?
Yeah.
When you moved around and you started arguing with me,
Yes.
that was the issue.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay.
And you say, no, I'm going to keep looking, I'm not talking to you. You keep
Well-
arguing, saying, you're arresting if you want, you're being argumentative in public, in front of all these people, in front of me. Okay? That's the issue here, sir. Right? That's the issue.
Why am I being argumentative? Because I'm standing on a
Because you've got to
principle.
stop talking.
I am standing on a principle and I continue to do it and I will continue to do it. Because I believe it's wrong what you guys are doing. If I was really causing, actually, that's it. If I was really causing a problem here, if I was stirring people up or I was speaking to groups or I was doing something like that, sure, I just walked on the side and they said, oh no, you can't be here. I can't be here because I've got a sign on my hand? Are you kidding me?
No, I stopped you to talk to you because of the sign.
Yes.
You became extremely argumentative and refused.
Because you couldn't tell me what I was doing wrong. You said, it's just a
I
Bible.
didn't want to listen to you at the start, so that's the difference in opinions.
Did I ask you? Did you tell me clearly? Did you tell me clearly what the Bible was? No.
And I even told you, you can Google online. You can go online and look at it. You're more than
No, you're the one telling me to do it. I'm just going to walk off because you say so. You've got to prove to me. You know, you don't have authority over me.
I don't need authority over you, but I'm
Yes, you
very
do.
on your side. The authority here is the security.
All right, guys, so I'm going to end that one right there. So you see Mike kind of interacting with the security guards. And the security guard, James here, is telling him, like, listen, the problem is not necessarily, like, they're saying it's that he has the sign and he can't be doing any type of commercial selling or soliciting. And he's saying he's not doing that. He's just walking around with it. And they're saying that it's a bylaw, right? So he's saying that I'm not interested in bylaws. I'm interested in being free. So that's his pushback with the sign. Again, he's walking around with a sign that says Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. So he wasn't doing anything else except just walking around with it. And they're saying that because he's walking around with it, it's kind of like commercial use of it. And I think it's hilarious how James tells him, like, it's a bylaw, and he says, like, well, what kind of law is it? Explain it to me. And James says, like, you can Google it. And I think that's hilarious that he's the security guard and he's a person who actually does have some sense of authority over the area. So not maybe necessarily over Mike, because then we would be in danger, because we have in Romans 13:14 where we should be submitting ourselves to governing authorities. So if those security guards have governing authority over that specific area in the public square, someone could push back and say, well, you know, Mike's being disobedient. God wouldn't appreciate that. But he's standing his ground because he's being accused of something that he's not doing. He's not soliciting. He's not selling anything. He literally just has the sign in his hand and he's walking around with it. So if someone speaks to him, he interacts with them, but he's not going around like necessarily trying to push anything. So he's saying, listen, this is Australia, and in the Constitution, I'm allowed to do this. When you guys go to Mike with the mic, the title of the video is "You Have No Freedom to Walk with a Jesus Sign." That's the title of the video. He talks about, well, if I were to take this sign and put it on a t-shirt and come in a public square, would I have to take my shirt off? And they say no. So he tells them eventually, I think it's utterly ridiculous. The only difference here is that this is on a paper and it would be on a t-shirt, and I would have to take my shirt off. So I can appreciate his boldness and his courage and standing up, you know, in his faith and for his faith and pushing back on this. You know, it's very encouraging. Jesus said, hey, if the world hates you, it hated me first. And that is a Bible verse. I did not make that up. So when we see people being persecuted, pushed around, you know, bullied, picked on, and they're not bothering anybody, but they're just trying to put the news of Jesus out there, that's to be expected. As Christians, we expect that. All right, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and end this live stream. I will be back on here with you guys in a couple of hours because it's already Friday. Friday, we're going to jump on here early so we can get our weekend started. So until later on, guys, take care of yourselves, take care of one another, love yourselves, and love one another. Be peaceful. Peace.